So the hurricane came and just hit Florida, and the devastation is absolutely massive. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a neighborhood that got hit really hard by this hurricane. It's called Shore Acres in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'm going to show you what homeowners here are now having to deal with after Hurricane Helene. We're talking 5-6 feet of water that got into people's houses, complete destruction. They're having to throw out all the interior contents. They're having to move out. And I think it's really important for you all watching out there to understand the reality of what's going on in Florida right now with these extreme weather events and the risks that you run buying a home in certain locations in Florida. And this is a good example of what happened here the other night with the hurricane. You could see this house, it's this white house. I want you to pay attention to the line, that brown line on the house there. That's how high the water levels rose to. So that's out about 4.5 feet on the house. From the street, it's probably 6-7 feet. This house was for sale, and it just got completely flooded. You can see there's a swing in the front yard. Clearly kids live here. It's a family that lives here. And this is the devastation that's occurring here in Florida. And this was a neighborhood, Shore Acres, that was already having issues before this hurricane. The inventory of homes for sale had spiked up to 230 homes because a year ago during Hurricane Idalia, half of the homes in Shore Acres flooded. Lots of people had to sell. Demand went down. Inventory went way up. Well, now another hurricane has come and hit. And home prices here, I talked to some of the locals, they think the prices are going to drop even further. And it's a shame because this is actually a really beautiful neighborhood. I commented on this the last time I was here. Really idyllic, really, really nice. But it's at a very low elevation level. And so when there's a hurricane that causes a big storm surge, which is what happened during Helene, the storm surge goes to 8 feet, 9 feet. We're only at like 4 feet above sea level here. 5 feet above sea level, so that means houses get flooded. But now if you look at this house over here, you can tell it didn't get hit as bad because it's up from the street, goes up and then has a porch, so the water didn't come up as high. And the reason I'm pointing out these specifics on elevation is because if you're a home buyer in Florida, you really have to pay attention to the elevation of your house. A couple feet can be the difference between your house gets flooded, you need to move everything out and do repairs and a complete remodel, versus you do okay and it's not that bad. Now here's another house, everyone, just across the street again. You can see the water line on the garage up 4 feet, 5 feet, which again from the street means the water was up 7 or 8 feet. You could tell that this house was also on the market. As a sign says newly remodeled. The for sale sign is actually washed away. You could see it. You could see it down there. But I want you folks to think about this. Like last night, the water was up to the newly remodeled poster right there. It was up to that level. And what's really interesting is this hurricane wasn't even a direct hit on Tampa, St. Pete. The hurricane actually hit Tallahassee and Big Bend. But because it was a Category 3, Category 4 storm, about 100 miles offshore, those winds and displacement of water caused a big storm surge that rushed into Pinellas County and caused the worst storm surge in 80 years. So we had had the highest water levels in 80 years. A lot of people weren't expecting this. St. Petersburg typically dodges these hurricanes, doesn't get hit that hard. But again, it depends on where you are. Where I live in St. Petersburg, there was no water. My elevation level was higher. I barely saw anything. However, if you live in a low-lying area near the coast, things weren't so good. All right, this is the craziest water line I've seen yet. That water line is probably 5.5 feet from the driveway, which from the street is probably like 6.5 or 7 feet. You could see it goes up to the garage. Now, this house is on second floor, so they weren't really impacted by it. But you have houses all here along this street that are on the first floor. For instance, take a look at that. Look at the water line over there. I mean, a lot of these houses, a lot of the contents on the inside are just destroyed. This is actually for sale. What's crazy is this house, the owner bought it in 2023. They bought it for like $650. Now they're selling for $550 at a $100,000 loss already. Want us to wonder what's going to happen now after this hurricane. By the way, in the neighbor's yard, you can see the fence fell. Look at the water line next to the neighbor's pool. That is literally 5.5 feet at least. Crazy. And of course, we now need to talk about the property insurance crisis in Florida, because this was something that was getting really bad already. The homeowners insurance rates, the flood insurance rates were skyrocketing, and these homeowners insurance rates look like they might be going up even further after this hurricane. And many people in Florida are on property insurance through Citizens, which is the state-backed insurance carrier. Citizens is increasing the insurance rates 14% this year. And a lot of homeowners in Florida now can't afford their insurance, to the point that many homeowners in Florida are going with no insurance. They're doing something called going bare, that the property insurance costs now are so high that they just don't even have insurance anymore. And I just have to wonder how sustainable this whole situation is. Because the cost of living in Florida, it's gotten so bad over the last 4 years. The rents, the insurance costs, the property taxes, the home prices went way up above what people can afford. And now we're seeing the bubble start to burst. We're seeing the inventory skyrocket, the home prices start to go down. And then you throw something like this hurricane into the equation. What is this going to mean for Florida's housing market? What is this going to mean for property insurance rates in the future? Well, they're probably going to go up by more. We might see more private insurance carriers drop out of the state. And I think the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, and the legislature, they're going to have to start thinking of some ways to help Florida homeowners here. Because currently, Citizens is actually trying to figure out ways to get people off the insurance. They're trying to kick people off the insurance, restrict people with second and third homes and how many policies they can have. You know, I'm generally all for a free market solution, not really for the government coming to try to regulate things, but this situation with property insurance in Florida is getting so bad that I think the state does need to step in and come up with a workable solution to help Florida homeowners recover from this crisis. And the storm surge, I mean, you can see there's just stuff on people's lawns. Left and right, couches, mattresses. Every house pretty much. Look at over here, you could see these houses were on higher ground. You could see where the water came up to, right on the lawn. Looks like in this house it didn't actually get flooded, but it was because it was a higher elevation. I drove a couple blocks over to a neighborhood called Snell Isle. And one thing you should remember, folks, is just a year ago, this area got hit really hard by Hurricane Idalia. Particularly up here in Snell Isle and Shore Acres, half of the homes flooded a year ago, and it looks like the other half flooded this year, maybe even more. So you gotta ask the question, well, what's gonna happen in this housing market in the long term? What is this gonna do to home values? What is this gonna do to inventory levels? Because I think that's important for you guys to understand as potential home buyers or investors in Florida. What are the risks? And to answer that question, I wanna go back 2 years to Hurricane Ian. And Hurricane Ian, which hit Cape Coral and Fort Myers very hard, late September 2022, we saw big destruction down there. Since then, home values in the zip codes that got hit hard, like on Sanibel Island, Fort Myers Beach, are down 15 to 25% in 2 years, according to data from Zillow that you can find on Reventure app for your zip code. And so that's a good idea of what will happen to home values here in Shore Acres and Snell Isle. They're likely to go down 20%, 25%, maybe more, depends on the inventory levels. But hurricanes are not good for home values. The other example I think about is New Orleans. New Orleans is one of the weakest housing markets in America. Why? Gets hit by hurricanes a lot. Over the last 5 years in New Orleans, home prices have barely increased. They've gone up like 5% in 5 years, when the national home price has gone up 40%. And so once an area develops a reputation for getting hit really hard by hurricanes, fewer people want to go there, more people want to leave, inventory goes higher, and prices drop. You can see here, if we walk down the street, that we also have some trees down. The winds for this storm here in St. Petersburg got up to 70, 80 miles an hour, knocking down some trees. I mean, that's a massive tree, actually, that fell down over there. Massive tree that fell down over here. You could see that the water levels here in Snell Isle weren't quite as bad. So you can see the water line there on the garage, up about 2 to 3 feet. And actually the house probably was spared because the house was even higher. Again, showing you folks the importance of minor differences in elevation. So their garage might have gotten flooded, but their house looks to have been spared. And we're going to have a raft of insurance claims from this storm. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the insurance market in Florida. Because the other thing with Citizens, the state-backed insurer, is they are not very financially solvent. The Citizens property rates, which is, again, is the insurance for people who can't get private insurance in Florida from a private company, they go to Citizens, the state-backed company, they get insurance from Citizens. Well, Citizens is not very solvent because their rates are lower than market. So since Citizens rates are like half of what the market rates are, if Citizens has to pay out a lot of claims, they're not going to be solvent. And so again, I don't really know what is going to happen here. The government in Florida has got to figure something out to try to probably attract more private insurers into the market, to try to make Citizens more financially solvent. In the end, maybe taxes need to go up in Florida to fund the homeowners insurance bucket that will benefit all Floridians, probably in the long run. Or maybe this housing market just needs to crash. Home prices need to go down by 50% like they did in '07. And that'll start making things cheaper again. Because if home prices and land values go down, that will make a lot of things cheaper. The insurance rates will probably go down, the property tax bills will go down, the rents will go down, and the situation will at least get slightly more bearable for the average Florida resident. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below about this hurricane in Florida. Do you live in Florida? Did you experience it? How are you doing with it? Let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts on if you're someone who's maybe looking to move to Florida? You know, does this make you less likely to want to buy a house here? Like I've said numerous times in this video, what's most important is that you understand the elevation, the flood zone situation, and the evac zone situation for any area you're looking at buying a house, as well as the historical proclivity to get hit by hurricanes. Here, Shore Acres, Snell Isle, these areas always get hit by hurricanes. So if you buy in an area like this, you are taking a risk. And it's, again, very likely we see home values continue to drop, inventory levels continue to go up. Actually, in the short term, inventory might drop 3 months after this storm. There's going to be a lot of renovations that need to get done. But then after 3 to 4 months, the inventory will likely go back up and go back higher. So again, look out for that. And stay safe out there, everyone, especially if you're down here in Florida.